Scott said. Oops.
Yeah. Oh, what happened there?
Are you there?
You disappeared for a second.
Okay. Do you remember what Scott said?
Yeah. What did he say?
He goes, "Oh, it's like two puppies."
I didn't hear him say that.
You didn't? We've been laughing about that for months.
Well, that's so true.
That's Scott. That's Scott.
Like, puppies that can't.
Hey,
that's that is how we talk about that all the time. Anne Marie and I laugh about how it's like, you're not going to understand this. I know you're not going to understand. We couldn't help each other. That's why we were such good friends.
Right. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Over 50 Starting Over. And I'm Barry Edwards.
Merle Garrison.
And I'm sorry?
I said it's good to be here again, Barry.
Yeah, it really is. It always is. We're actually recording a day earlier. I have client meetings all day tomorrow, important stuff. So thank you for showing up a day earlier, because I would hate to miss any of this. We got nice momentum going. And I was wondering, I just started thinking, is this actually our Christmas special? Or are we going to, it's Wednesday, right?
Good. Let's see here. Today's the 18th, so 7 days from now would be the 25th. Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. What?
You know what?
Okay, so that means, and today's Wednesday, so Tuesday. I guess this is our Christmas show.
Or if we want to squeeze one in on Christmas Eve on Tuesday, I'd be game for that.
Okay, all right.
Or
let's
we
talk
do
about
it the day after. We could do one the day after. But if it's a Christmas special, I think we should kind of. What do you want to do? You want to do one next Tuesday or the day after Christmas?
Let's see. Tuesday is Christmas Eve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Well, let's talk after the show. Figure that out. But I'm game for that. Let's just make sure. I think
it'd be fun to do one on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, we could have eggnog and who knows what'll happen.
So let's do that. That'll be fun.
All right. Sounds like fun.
I promised last week that I would talk a bit about vitamins more because I was so excited about the arthritis in my shoulder. I started doubling up on my omega-3 fish oil, which is still less than my recommended dosage. I do less with everything, but I started after a couple of weeks, it started a drastic reduction in this arthritis in my shoulder. So I was excited. I mentioned that. And so I did some quick research on all my vitamins. Before I take on a vitamin, I do research it thoroughly, but it's been years. I've been taking the same vitamins for years. So I had to go back and quickly do it again. Now, the funny thing is I always knew that omega-3 fish oil was for heart health.
Right.
And, but I thought it also had to do with joints. It says nothing about joint health. Oh. So it could be a coincidence, or maybe it has had that benefit on me unexpectedly. But I'll also say that another vitamin that I've been taking once again for maybe 2 months now is glucosamine sulfate. And that is for joint health.
Okay.
And so I'm just going to tell you a quick story about it. Now, you remember my dog Bowser.
Of course. Who could forget Bowser?
Yeah, boxer, shepherd, husky, kind of wolf-like dog, and so nice and so smart.
Personality galore.
Yes. Yeah, he was just incredible. But those kind of dogs, they almost always will develop hip problems as they get older.
Yeah.
And so as he was getting older and you see him struggling to go up the stairs and stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, everybody's saying I got to try this glucosamine. So I did. I didn't see any improvement for a long while. And then I realized I checked his weight versus the dosage. I wasn't giving him but about a third of what he should be taking.
Oh.
And when I upped him to the correct dosage, within a week or two, I saw drastic improvement.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I want to, a couple lessons to be learned there is with glucosamine, you do have to take quite a bit of it to get the required effect. And if you don't, you're really wasting your money. So be aware of that. So I have seen it work with Bowser, and that might be what's working on my shoulder, even though I'm not taking quite the recommended dosage. But I'm going to now make an effort, because my problem is, as we discussed before, once I take my vitamins for the first time in the day, in the morning, I don't like to think about it again.
Right.
And most of my vitamins, I'm supposed to take another time or two throughout the day. And that's a struggle for me. So I am going to try to remember to take that extra dose of glucosamine in the evening or whatever. So it's pretty good. The last thing I want to say about glucosamine is that if you're going to give it to your dog, as I just suggested, it's so powerful for the right dogs, definitely get the dog version. And you can find it online, very cost effective. And the reason for that is there's a lot of additives that are good for humans that are harmful and even fatal for dogs. There's, there's chocolate, there's different things that dogs cannot have. So definitely get the dog version if you're going to do that. Okay, I was kind of just flying by the seat of my pants.
But that's
there.
okay.
So,
glucosamine. Now, I have a question. So,
sure.
I mean, because joint pain is a pretty serious thing for people over 50. Doesn't matter if you're starting over or not. That can really ruin your day. So glucosamine, it sounds like some type of sugar and maybe an amino acid or so. What the heck? Do you have any idea?
Question, and you're totally wrong.
It happens all the time.
Glucosamine is manufactured naturally in your body. I just took a very quick definition of it. It's and it helps to keep the health of your cartilage rubbery. The cartilage is the rubbery tissue. It is manufactured naturally in your body. And this is, let's see, it cushions your, as you get older, your levels of this compound begin to drop, which leads to the gradual breakdown of the joint. That's all I stole for the show. But as I recall, glucosamine, most of it is taken from, I think, shellfish.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, I think I remember hearing that on a commercial.
Yeah, and I hate to, if I'm wrong about that, please forgive me. And I did mean to proceed all of this with a disclaimer of saying I am not a nutritionist. All right. What I'm throwing out here is strictly a layman's point of view for discussion's sake. And since you and I always started this show with a phone call between you and I in mind, because our phone calls have always been so fun and so stimulating. I want to share this with you. Okay. But incidentally, I think some other people are catching this as well. So
you're frozen.
I just want to say, do your own research and your particular unique. Did you catch my audio?
I think you were saying the important thing is to do your own research on this whole thing, because you're not the expert on this. However, you've had a great experience, and people that are having joint pain or any kind of pain like that are sometimes desperate to find a solution. So this is a great tip. Yeah, I know exactly how you feel.
I was to the point of feeling desperate with as bad as my shoulder was. So that's why I was just so happy I had to share this. So that's glucosamine. Got my disclaimer in there. Let's move on to a couple other things and wrap this part up.
Okay.
All right. So let's see where I am in my notes. And I got most of these definitions off of webmd.com because they're pretty impartial. So because I get all my vitamins on puritanpride.com. And if I go there and and now you're frozen, buddy. Are you hearing me fine?
I am hearing you great.
Okay, then that's all that matters. So I get all my vitamins at puritanpride.com. And you could just go to vitamins.com and it'll reroute you over there. So whatever's easiest for you. But I don't want to give their definitions because there's invariably going to be a marketing slant there. So I want to give some more partial feedback. So something that is very important to us over 50 is DHEA. And there's a big long term for that I'm not going to bother trying to pronounce. But what it is a hormone produced by our body's adrenal glands. And these are glands just above your kidneys. It functions as a precursor to male and female sex hormones, including testosterone and estrogen.
Now you have my attention.
Yes. precursors. So it's a precursor to both male and female sex hormones. The precursors are substances that are converted by the body into a hormone. So this helps you convert more testosterone for us guys. All right. Very important, the considerable drop off that happens to us as of leaving our 20s, let alone getting the 50s. So as I recall, I've been taking this since I was like in my mid 30s, as I recall. And back then I was taking 25 milligrams. And just because of reading that I've done, that after 50, I've been taking 50 milligrams.
Oh. Yeah.
So, and they have a 50 milligram bottle of it. It's really cheap too. So I do highly recommend it for guys over 50. And here are the claims range in benefits, such as building up the adrenal gland, strengthening the immune system, slowing natural changes in the body that come with age, providing more energy, improving mood and memory, and building up bone and muscle growth. So it might be something that you may want to experiment and see. If you asked me about energy.
Yeah.
And
so question for you. I mean, how could you not want any of those things that you just mentioned? But I want to ask you, are there side effects? Is there a downside to this? And here's one question, especially regarding testosterone. Concern that I have is, what if I were to take something like this and then I decided, say 6 months later, you know what, this is sort of upsetting my stomach or something like that, and I stopped taking it. Does that have a detrimental effect to my own hormonal levels, or could that somehow be damaging to me, that I become dependent on a particular vitamin or some type of something that now I have to take for the rest of my life?
Oh, well, I think those are extremely valid concerns. As far as what you're talking about there is a body developing an addiction to it, I simply could not see that. Just using common sense, you would just fall back to your previous levels, and I would think that everything would readjust to the way you previously were. But you asked me about side effects, so I did a quick Google search on it, and it came up with possible side effects of DHEA. Can include oily skin and acne, as well as skin thickening, hair loss, stomach upset, high blood pressure, changes in menstrual cycle. Now, here's a few things for women, because remember what I said. This is a precursor for hormones in men and women. So it was hinting that if you're a female, it would help you rebuild estrogen. Whereas for us, it helps us rebuild testosterone.
Gotcha.
So women may want to take it too. However, I would strongly suggest that you do separate research. Disregard what I'm saying, because I take this, my research is for a man. Taking from that point of view, I don't know what the recommendations are for women. Additionally, three final ones. Facial hair in women. That's a fun one. Deepening the voice in women, and fatigue, which is funny because it conversely says it could give you energy. So those are possible side effects. I don't know. I have a very high tolerance to like everything. So my stomach never gets upset, or I've never experienced any of this. So, but always be careful about that.
And you say that you'd use this for some time
at
now.
least 15 years.
Wow.
Probably 20. Yeah. Another disclaimer that I was hinting at there is women. What I'm talking about, everything I'm talking about is from a man's point of view. I got about 4 more things to go through, and I want to do something.
Yeah, cool.
But I hope somehow, some way, I could get Lisa on here to discuss these kind of things from a woman's point of view, because she's very knowledgeable and very well read. I think she would do a very good job. She's just kind of camera shy, so maybe I could have her off in the distance.
But it is so important to weigh in
really
from the female side of things, because as we've stated before, I mean, we're so different, especially in our body makeup.
And especially with women hitting menopause, we talk about the reduction in our testosterone and related things that happen with that. But menopause brings about different things, and I think differently for different women. It's a very complicated subject that you and I just cannot approach, so we won't.
I think that's a policy that we should have.
It is a policy that we will instill from now on for sure. Okay. Additionally, CoQ10. And for those of watching the video, I know most of you probably listening to the podcast, but those watching the video, I hold these up to the camera. CoQ10 is again for heart health, and it is technically coenzyme Q10. On the street, it's called CoQ10. Commonly used for conditions that affect the heart, such as heart failure and fluid buildup in the body, in parentheses, congestive heart failure or CHF, chest pain, in parentheses, angina, and high blood pressure, which runs in my family, along with all these heart conditions. Heart disease runs rampant in my family, which is why I take this in the fish oil primarily. That's my primary motivator. And let's see, also used for preventing migraines and Parkinson's disease and many other conditions. So I take one of those a day in the morning, and can't go wrong with that.
In the morning, you have several pills, or at least 3 that you've mentioned. 6 of them. Okay. Yeah. So that's your routine.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, I would like to get into the policy of doing one more, maybe in the evening or afternoon, another session of some glucosamine, omega-3. And that's the only thing that's super important to me. Let me finish up because this kind of stuff is reoccurring, the frequency. All right, so next is a new one for me. As of about 1 year ago, I started taking these vitamin D drops. Okay, so it's just it's an oil, and they say put it in your tea or something, which I would imagine would be very good, but I just put it right on my tongue, squeeze it, and I'm done. And it's like this slightly oily, very hint of a lemony taste. I think it tastes good.
Oh, okay.
I think it's really good. So that's the way I do it.
Hey, usually things in those kind of bottles do not taste good. So thanks for saying that.
Yeah, for sure. You're absolutely right about that. I started taking this as a recommendation because at this time of year, winter, I definitely battle the SAD, seasonal affective disorder thing. When the days get really short, I battle depression by... something that helps a lot is for the last 11 years, Lisa and I do go to Florida at the end of February, but there's still a lot of darkness and cold. And here in Cleveland, gray, dark skies all the time in the winter. So that's where we primarily get our vitamin D, is from the sun. Now you can also get some, it's hard to get it from foods. There's some in fatty fish and egg yolks. Some things like liver, I think, which yuck, I'm not eating that.
No, thanks.
Yeah. So for 6 months out of the year, I do this vitamin D supplement in the morning as well. It's supposed to help with the depression.
Just during the winter months, you're taking that, not during the summer, because you're always out in the sun.
Yes. And I love doing yard work. Anything. Yeah. If it's nice out, I'm outside. I just love being outside. So I don't.
Well, it makes a lot of sense, Barry. I mean, I living here in Southern California, of course, the days are short here as well, but most days we do get a lot of sun. So unlike living in Cleveland, where, big gray cloud rolls up in November and doesn't go away until April sometime, end of April for that matter. I remember that being just a long marathon of dreary, dark, hazy, misty kind of freezing cold days. And that's tough. Out here, though, like I was on my bicycle yesterday, and it's you can do that all year long. So I can't imagine going back and not having the sunshine. When it's cloudy for 3 days here, people are so depressed. I mean, it's just out there. I don't think they would survive out there. So great tip with the vitamin D. I think that's well needed.
I have to say too, other benefits of it. Important role. It plays a very important role in maintaining proper bone and teeth structure, and recently found to help the immune system and protection against cancer. So you can't go wrong with it. As a matter of fact, it's like a lot of things that medical profession or nutritionists, I should say, seem to be pushing it way too much in very, very high doses. And I think that a lot of these people have the mindset that something natural, a vitamin, you can't OD on or do too much on. And dude, I'm not like that. I'm the opposite. It's something, and I'll get to my all natural multivitamin here in a minute because that pertains to that. But if something tells me that I need to take very high doses of it throughout the day, I'm always going to go under, not over. Because I eat food, I eat pretty damn well too. And I think you can overdo anything. There's certainly always such thing as too much of a good thing. And I don't want to find out when it's too late what that is. But I can certainly agree that I've been deficient on vitamin D, and I need a heck of a lot more of it. So just, follow the instructions and don't go crazy with anything. Moderation for sure. But I want to throw these statistics out at you. 41.6% of the U.S. population is deficient in vitamin D. Listen to this, though. Minorities fare much worse. 82.1% of Blacks are deficient. 69.2% of Hispanics are deficient.
Why would that
so
be?
I think it.
Did they? I mean,
I don't know.
What's the difference? I wonder why that would be.
Since it's counterintuitive, but since it's primarily derived from soaking up sunshine, are Blacks getting the least? I almost
think it was the opposite.
That's what I mean. It's counterintuitive. You would think having darker skin, you would absorb more. But so I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out. I think
interesting.
It is. I think that's an important thing to know. And that brings me to, is this my last one? I think it is. I hope it is. I told you briefly about this last week, Merle. Ultravitamin. I said,
Ultraman.
Ultraman 50 plus. There's several different lines of the Ultraman vitamin. So needless to say, for us, let's go with the 50 plus. And the reason for that is it's high performance vitamins with over 50 important nutrients for men, and especially created for men over 50, with vital nutrients not commonly found in the diet like ginkgo biloba and phyllosophidiloserine.
I looked that stuff is delicious.
See how to say it. I looked it up to see how to say it. I don't remember how that is said, but
you did a good job though.
It's phosphatidylserine.
Phosphatidylserine.
Yes, I think you said it right. Both of those have to do with mental health in keeping neurons firing correctly, lubricating the neuron pathways, something like that. But they both, how we start slipping mentally as we get older. This is to help prevent. What did you just say? This is to help prevent that. There's also stuff to put wood in your pencil as well, such as saw palmetto, lipscopine, healthy prostate.
Hush your mouth.
Healthy prostate function. Okay, so it helps improve memory, especially occasional mild memory problems associated with aging. And finally, features zinc, an important mineral that contributes to normal semen production and sexual health. So, but the most important thing is there's like 50. This is designed to be a catch-all for all of us over 50. So if you do nothing else, and you asked me about energy boosters, I would definitely think that's going to be an energy booster because you're supplementing. Oh, and you're supposed to take 2 or maybe 3 of these a day. I forget. I only take 1. I feel it too. I really do feel it when I take this. It is an energy booster.
Okay.
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah.
Where do you get that?
PuritanPride.com.
Oh, okay. Is it one of their products though, so you can only get it from them?
When I look up Ultraman vitamin, I see this. The label looks different, but offered by a lot of different companies. So I don't know if it's the exact same vitamin or not.
Okay.
I can't answer that. I just get all my vitamins there because I find them very cost effective, and I trust them because of my experience with them over time. And I read all the reviews. I really research my vitamins because something I want to stress as we wrap this up, because we're 25 minutes in now. But what I want to stress is that, vitamins, the vitamin industry is not regulated by the FDA. Now,
it's not?
Hell no, it's not. So it can be so all over the place. Wow. And all of their claims and everything have asterisks all over the place where it says it has been suggested that, and then it talks about some study here, study there, and that kind of thing. So you have to be careful about what you're taking and where you're getting it from. And so with all that said, if anyone wants to chime in and set me straight on anything, I would very much appreciate that. If you have additional knowledge that you would like to share, we would gladly read it. So, please share. This is what we're here for. We're not experts on everything, to say the least. We're conduits and give different people a voice. So with that, Merle, I'm really tired of talking at this moment. I want to get you in on this. I have a question for you that you and I vaguely talked about. Well, no, we've talked about this many times at different times, but along the over 50 starting over lines, I commonly talk about finding your passion, doing the thing of passion, primarily more of like a startup kind of thing, an entrepreneurial kind of venture, because that's what I help people with. That's my attitude. Right. That's why I talk about it. But what if you're over 50 starting over and you from corporate America with a very successful career like yourself, like Lisa, who has reinvented herself over the last few years. I shouldn't say reinvented herself, but truly re-guided her career down a more passionate path. It's such an inspiring story that I would like to, or have her maybe, share sometime. But in your case, you are contemplating different options. And what about men over 50 that got downsized out of corporate America, let's say, because that's so common. Yeah. It is very common today. And it really hits them, man. It hits you in your psyche, can totally tear down your self-confidence. But what if you're like, but I navigate corporate America so well that this is just killing me, and I feel too old to get back in. What do I do? I'm lost. You just take it from here. Give me your thought.
Yeah, and all of these are legitimate thoughts that you're talking about, Barry. These are the questions of life for many men this age. I remember that my father, he was 55 when he decided to retire from Ameritech in Cleveland, and that was a very big move. And, the rest of the story is that within a few weeks of announcing his retirement, he had a heart attack and he died. And so I think that, as I am nearly that age myself and contemplating my future, I think it really all depends on what you're looking for and what type of quality of life that you're looking for. I would never say that somebody in their 50s should not go back into corporate America. Like you said, if that's where you have thrived, then maybe that's where you belong. I would say that everybody's different in that regard. My father, he was a VP of personnel at Ameritech, and at the time of his death, he had been managing all of the negotiations between the Communication Workers of America Union and the management at Ohio Bell and Ameritech. And he was on the news almost every night managing. He was the front man for the negotiations. They hung him in effigy. His name was Ted. So I remember watching the news one day and he came on. They always villainized him. He was always looking real mean on TV, which was kind of cool. And he managed that to success. He did that 3 years in a row before he passed away. And every single time he successfully managed through one of those negotiations, you could see that he was aging about 5 or 6 years every single time. And
it sounds like being president.
There's a lot of similarities that just I could see what it was doing to him and the stress that he was bringing home with him and the irritability that he had just dealing with everyday life. And, he had a heart attack like so many people do in corporate America. But, I really don't believe that it was the business that did him away. It was how he thought about the business. It was, he was the big attitude guy. But now looking back in life, I can see that his attitude was, if it's up to me, if it is to be, it's up to me. And he put all of the pressure on himself. And, in the end, my dad actually became a Christian within the last 5 years of his life. And I could see that things were dramatically changing. He wasn't internalizing things the way that he used to. He would come home and many times have a pleasant smile on his face, which we didn't see that very often before. So he started to have a way to offload all of those stresses and put those things into God's hands. So I guess in a long sense, what I'm trying to explain is that, your direction and where you go from now has everything to do with what you're trying to get out of your life. And you have to prioritize what's really the most important thing in life. Are you chasing the money? Are you chasing the fame of success? Is that really what gives you self-satisfaction? Is that what grows your soul? Or is it your family? Or are you actually because corporate America, you can make a lot of money and there's less risk because you've got your 401ks all set up there. You've got your benefits plan. You go into business for yourself like you have all these years, Barry, and there's a gigantic risk. There's nobody to back you up and support you. You've got to do all of that.
Ups and downs.
Here's how I look at it is that either way you go, life isn't going to be easy. I really
grass is greener.
I really believe that the success factor is all in how you internalize it, how you look at things. And if you believe, as I do, that God is for me, he's going to lead me into success because his will for my life is for me to be loved by him and experience all of his blessings in order to glorify him so that other people will see that and say, like you did, Barry, what does he have that I don't have, and how do I get it? And that's why he wants to bless us. And if we start really focusing on that and let him guide us into the thing that he wants, like let your heart guide you into it. What is it that you wanted? Forgetting about the money, and success is almost guaranteed. So I personally think that, yes, there are some serious stresses involved in corporate America. And for people that have done well there, maybe that's the place you want to continue to stay. But there's a big wide world out there, and the world is your oyster. Here's another thing to think about, Barry, is that maybe you've been in corporate America and you want to change, but it doesn't mean you have to leave corporate America. Maybe there's something within corporate America that you want to try that's different. I had somebody that I used to work for that I respect so much. Her name is Amy, and she was my mentor, my sales mentor for a time. And then she left the organization, and now she's with another organization, and she's the head of marketing. Well, there's some similarities there, but they're not the same, as you know. And now she's having the best time doing this whole new thing that she's learning.
I love
so I do too, and as I personally sit here myself and contemplate, well, what do I want to do? I've had some time to think about this, and I started thinking, I am such a history guy. I mean, in my spare time, I'm reading history books. I'm reading about Supreme Court cases and who won and why they won and what the rationale and how it lines up with the Constitution and the difference between an originalist, which I am, somebody that believes in the sanctity of the Constitution and the original meaning, and others who believe it's a living document and that the meaning of it changes as society changes, which I do not believe. But learning all of those things, sometimes I think, well, gosh, maybe I should start to look at something, and maybe I should go back to school, go to law school, get a law degree. My grandfather, as you know, was a district attorney. He was one of the first black district attorneys working for Robert Kennedy. And so I have this in my blood, and maybe that's where I want to go. I don't know. But the cool thing is, when you're 50, it's sort of like, I got my kids, they're out of college now, and it's sort of like being in college again myself right now. I'm young enough, I can do whatever I want. So the good news is there's lots of options out there, but follow your passion. I think that's the overall big message here.
I think that's a great message. You made me think about so many things as you were saying all those things. I want to throw this out so we don't forget, because I want to talk about this on another podcast when we have more time. What you said about being an originalist with the Constitution, so that it should not be reapplied differently over time. I want to in the future talk about the changing world when Google and Facebook, these kind.
Oh, I'm waiting for you to come back. Sorry, Barry, I didn't hear your question there. You were saying Google and Facebook?
Are not.
Uh-oh. Okay.
It's a whole different. There is a different game going on now where they have so much power. Froze up, but yes. Okay, I was saying these kind of things are testing what freedom of speech is and should be. There's a lot of questions. They have so much power, and they're also testing the definition of what is a monopoly, and not anymore. But that I'm just saying we need to tuck that away and talk about that in the future, because we have so much to talk about right here, right now. I want to get back to what you said about, I want to make sure that anybody and everybody knows that is feeling stuck, that is new to being over 50, starting over, you got squeezed out, was unexpected, and you're having the self-doubts. Know that you're in your prime right now. You're more valuable than you've ever been. And that's the truth. Now, your bottom feeders, that is not the case. It's all good news. Your bottom feeders, that is not the case. They're looking for the cheap help. All right. That is not where you belong anyway right now. That's how you got squeezed out in the first place, is because they got pay somebody younger half the salary and get a third of the effectiveness. So, but the thing is that you have an amazing resume that you're also afraid, oh shit, I haven't updated this in 20 years. Get some professional help updating it. You definitely need to do that. Because things are different these days. I work with a lot of different people in this field. I'm aware of how that works. So I definitely encourage that.
I have something to say about that, Barry, and that is, as we sit here over 50, I actually had that exact same thing. I got to update my resume. I haven't had to do that in like 10 or so years. And so
daunting.
Yeah, and it is. And so I went out and got help. I looked up, I did some research on resume writers and, went on Yelp, looked at all of the reviews and everything. I knew what I was looking for, and I hired this firm to help me. First off, what a great thing. It's not really that expensive. You get into it, what you put into it. But it was a delight to go through the process. And one of the things that I was not expecting that, because you know how it is with the resume, there's this huge stress factor and anxiety, all that kind of stuff. But I met with this, and they assigned a counselor to me, and she was fantastic. She obviously had done this a bunch of times before, gave me this sense of security and peace about how this was going to turn out. She interviewed me. At the end of the interview, she was so excited about my qualifications and my experience that it was making me excited. I mean, we were just kind of going back and forth and everything. One of the things that she noticed on my resume was I put all of my experiences on there, and thinking all of them were relevant. I've got a great story to tell, But what she did was she cut out probably the bottom 2/3 of the experiences that I've had, because she felt like the experiences that I've had in the last 10 years are the most relevant, and that I didn't have to go through a listing of everything I've ever done. The big reason was because it was giving away my age. And and as you know, I mean, I've had to hire lots and lots of people. You know, you don't have time to go over every resume with a fine-tooth comb. So what you do is you get a stack of resumes. They're daunting to go through. There's lots of information. So I'm looking at the highlights, and I'm just going through the highlights, and certain things are going to check off, like, this looks weird. This guy's has huge gaps in his resume, or there's lots of things that jump off the page, but things like that are things that can easily disqualify you right out of the gates, and you'll never know it. Go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, I do a lot of hiring of programmers and different artists for different things with projects that I'm working on. I have to go through a lot of resumes. I hate doing that. I also did the hiring back when I was at an agency many years ago. And so I had to do the same thing. And the process that I use every time is the first, what do you want to call it? The first throw out phase. I try to quickly go through and disqualify as many as possible. So I then whittle it down. Hopefully I disqualify 2/3, and then I go and do a second round on that final 1/3. And then I start rating them from there. Is that what you do as well?
Yeah, because it's impossible to do it any other way. And you have other things that you're needing to do as well. It's not just that your job is to hire people. You've got to run your organization at the same time. So yeah, I mean, you want to nail it down to your top 5, because really that's going to be about the extent of what your workload's going to allow you to manage. So in order to get down to that, you're going to have to use some pretty big disqualifiers, and age could be one of those. And of course, there's legalities around that, but you'll never know about that.
That's for sure.
You're not going to know that you were disqualified because they figured out that you were 50 plus.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up, because I thought it was excellent advice that lady gave you to whittle down to the last 10 years, because the disqualifying, you want to make it into that last round. And I don't think of it so much as just the age. I think of it as highlights. It better be strong.
Age is just one thing that I was giving.
No fluff.
Away.
You don't have time for fluff. You know, it has to be very concise, because you got a lot at this age, at this point in our careers. We have a lot of things to put on there. I do know that the days of the one-page resume are over.
I disagree. With you.
I disagree, because I've had a very lengthy conversation with a colleague that specializes in this, who I respect a great deal. And okay, I can understand different
schools of thought. Yeah, that's the thing about resumes, is that there are different schools of thought, and no one person has the be-all, end-all answer. But here, I think, is the big deal, Barry, is how you feel about it is really key. And if you have a 1-page or a 2-page, if you feel super confident, because I don't think you're going to get thrown out because you have a 1-page or a 2-page.
I think
it's getting the resume is just getting you the appointment. And 1 or 2 pages can do it. Now, there's people that feel like if you put 2 pages, Barry, just like what I was talking about, is that I'm a manager and I've got a huge stack of resumes, and there's a 1-pager and I've got great highlights on that, and it's more succinct. It's probably going to get my attention more than a 2-pager that I got to spend more time on. That's the point there. So
that's traditionally, I mean, 30 years ago, whatever. Yeah, that's always the way it was.
It keeps changing. It keeps changing too. And to your point, that's why you want to go to a professional, because they're up with exactly what the times are with your resume, and they can
your
tell
industry.
You things that you haven't. Yeah, exactly. And things that you really have no idea that there's a pitfall there in front of you, and they can help you with that. Last thing I want to say about this is that if you go through a professional and you go through that whole process, once you have the finished product, you are going to feel so good about your resume that that's going to come out in your interviews. So
Boy,
it's
well said.
so worth the investment.
I can directly relate that to what I do with companies when developing their value propositions, and that is helping them find their most unique identifying benefits. And it could be as a company overall, and it can be for each individual service. And let me tell you, when you do a deep dive with these people and you really find the real passion behind what they're doing, and then you help bring that to the forefront where they go, oh my God, you hit it. And now everybody is on the same page with that messaging and are very confident about it. And their heart beats a little faster when they're talking. That helps out the sales force an awful lot, helps out all of your marketing messaging, of course. My point is that is exactly what you're saying on a personal level.
Yes.
Is that, when you have your messaging dialed in and it's tight and it's hard to get there. It takes a lot of refinement. And the first half of that process is like pulling teeth for you. Totally get that. But I'll tell you what, as it starts to take shape and you're seeing it, you'll almost get giddy about it. Be like, I didn't even realize that. These kind of things. So when you go into that interview, those interviews repeatedly, you will have a lot more confidence than you would otherwise. Being unprepared, forget about it. Back to what we said about doing speeches. I think it was last week. The moral to the story, the lesson that I learned out of the speech was preparation is key. Because I saw all the unprepared people go up there and scar themselves for life in class at this young age by not being prepared. Took a little turn because they did not prepare and bombed with their speech. And I'm sorry, I did not do a lot of laying the groundwork on coming back to that. But you guys helped me prepare for my speeches. And we talked about the final where I had to give this super important speech and you guys helped me prepare. And I did so well that I came home whistling Dixie and it makes such an impression on you. So preparation is everything. And another thing I want to make a note on this, you know what this leads us to in a future over 50 starting over, we need to talk about interviewing tech processes and techniques. That'd be a good one.
Yeah, I think so too. I've definitely had my experiences on both sides of the desk, and there's some funny stories as well. Hey, Barry, I'm noticing the time here, and we're coming up on the last 10 minutes of the show, and I definitely want to be able to talk about what's going on in current events right now, especially as we look at the fact that this is a monumental day in American history.
Right. Yeah, so take it away, man.
I just want to say that, today is Wednesday, December 18th, and the House is going to impeach President Trump today. There's no doubt about the fact that that's going to happen, and this will be the third president ever impeached by the House. The first one was Andrew Johnson, and the second one was Bill Clinton. And so in nearly 230 some odd years of our history, this is only the third time. He is the 45th president. And, they're definitely going to vote yes on impeachment. It'll be 100% partisan vote, and it'll go to the Senate after that. I think this is a dark day in American history. It's a very dark day. I keep hearing that it's a somber day. I don't know, somber and solemn. I just think that there's a darkness over this country right now, and the stakes are very high. We impeach a president based on obstruction of Congress and abuse of powers. And what we're going to do is we're going to impeach a president on something that is not in the Constitution that is impeachable. The Constitution in Article 2 is very specific about what impeachable items are. They are high crimes and misdemeanors, and the founding fathers define high crimes and misdemeanors as an extremely egregious crime. It's not as what we know as misdemeanor today. That definition has changed. And bribery and treason are the only items that we can impeach a president for. So abuse of power and obstruction of Congress are not impeachable offenses according to the Constitution. And if Congress is going to use those two items to impeach a sitting president whom over 60 million people voted for in a landslide victory using the Electoral College, then this is where the actual abuse of power is. It's in Congress. Congress is overstepping their power as a branch of our government, and they're usurping the executive branch. Even if you take a look at how our three branches are supposed to work, the history of our three branches is that when there's a dispute between the legislative and the executive branch, the judiciary comes in and settles it. That's exactly what our president was doing, was he was going to the judiciary because subpoenas do not have the force of law behind them. You have to get a writ from the Supreme Court in order to back that up. And that's what the president was doing. And Congress circumvented that by calling it obstruction of Congress. Now, if that is obstruction of Congress, then just about every president in our 45 president history is guilty of obstruction of Congress. And the interesting thing is that during the Constitutional Convention back in 1787, there was a debate on the floor, and it was George Mason that came up with the idea while they were discussing impeachment that maladministration should be added to the list of crimes that would cause impeachment. So bribery, treason, maladministration, high crimes and misdemeanors. And it was Madison that argued vehemently against that, saying that if maladministration is an impeachable offense, every single president will be impeached from here on, which is true. And if you take a look at what Trump is being impeached for, it's maladministration, which means this. If we impeach today, the chances of the next president being impeached is almost 100%. This actually destroys the office of the president, or has the potential of destroying the power of the office of the president. Today, I watched Nancy Pelosi in her intro speech to the impeachment, and she had a sign behind her that said, "To the republic for which it stands." And I know that that's part of the Pledge of Allegiance. She actually quoted the Pledge of Allegiance, which I was disturbed by, because a republic stands for representative government. A republic stands for, the only person in the federal government that we all vote for is the president. And the republic stands on the people's vote. It's government of the people, by the people, and for the people. When Congress makes a decision to impeach based on something that is not in the Constitution, they're stealing the will of the American people, which is where we get our freedoms from, our unalienable rights, which are we have the ability to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And liberty means that we have the right to vote for the government of our choice. Well, that's being stolen away from us by the majority party in the House right now, which is the Democrats. And for the leader of that party to say that they're protecting the republic and helping it to stand, I challenge that, because it's really the opposite. It's like the game Jenga. They're pulling out different pieces of wood so that now the republic stands on a very unfirm foundation. And I'm very concerned about where we go from here.
Oh, I certainly am too. You said it all. I've been extremely concerned about it. I listen to the hearings a bit when I'm in my car, flipping on NPR and listen to it for a while. And I got to tell you, every time, so it would go from Democrat to a Republican to a Democrat, and rebut it. And boy, the Democrats and the rhetoric, it's unbelievable. They just keep talking about so many emotionally pulling kind of words rather than, as you said, things that are unconstitutional. No, they're trying to tell you that he's just, geez, the words they're using, I can't even think of it. For one thing, they were using bribing a lot about 7 to 10 days ago. And then all of a sudden that got pulled for some reason. Maybe
because they didn't prove it. That's the only reason, because bribery does constitute an impeachable offense. And if they were able to prove it, they would have used that as an article of impeachment, but they didn't. They used two things that did not include any criteria for impeachment, which is abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Those are not in the category of impeachable offenses according to the Constitution. And I just want to say this, that it's so important for every American person to understand what's in the Constitution. And it's very important to understand what the original meaning of those words actually are saying. And it's sort of like the word gay meant something different 100 years ago than it means today. And so if George Washington were to write down, "I'm feeling gay today," well, today the progressives would say that George Washington was a homosexual. But that's not true, because the word meant something different back then. And so
I always wondered about Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble. Have a gay old time.
You see, exactly. And so that's why I say I'm an originalist. I look at the Constitution and the words in the Constitution. I want to understand what the founders meant at the time when they wrote those words. High crimes and misdemeanors mean something different than what's being portrayed by the Democratic Party today. These two articles of impeachment do not fit into the criteria that's inside the Constitution, and they know it, and that's why they didn't use bribery as one of the articles of impeachment. We should know what's inside of the Constitution, and the reason why is that people in authority, understanding that we don't actually understand the words that are in there, can use those words to deceive us. And that is exactly what tyrannical governments have done throughout all of history. Read your Constitution, know what's in it, so that you can't be fooled by those who would take your liberty and freedom in order to enhance their own power. That's what's happening today. Protect yourself and educate yourself. That would be my advice.
I think that's great advice. And certainly I don't remember the last time I read the Constitution. I rely on you for that kind of feedback.
A lot of people do.
I know, and thank God that we got you on the show. But what bothers me most, getting back to your original point here, is that it was clear that the far left collectively lost their minds, it seems to me, the day that Trump won the Republican nomination.
That's
Not
right.
the day he won the presidency, the day he won the nomination. I used to listen to NPR religiously. Every time I got in the car, I never changed the channel. But it was like that day, they went far left. And it was, prior to that, I thought they were very balanced, extremely balanced. I was very proud of them for their journalistic integrity in that regard. But as of like that day, they went far left. They started saying, we this, we that, talking about, we're all into this and against Trump. And I'm not a fan of Trump. I certainly don't have the derangement syndrome, though. I think he's done a lot of good, but I'd like somebody more respectable to represent the country and keep us on and keep the government coming back into a more respectable form of leadership. I think we're very far away from that. But I want to get back to your point, because they were on the road to impeachment from the day they lost the election. They clearly were, and they won, and they went totally against the Constitution that day when they started getting all electoral college.
Yes,
okay,
exactly. So it's interesting. Yeah. It's interesting that they can attack the Constitution and then in these hearings cite the founding fathers and how great the founding and the Constitution when they've been attacking it this whole time. The Constitution gives you and I personal protection over our unalienable rights given to us by God. This is according to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And when the Constitution is weakened or attacked, they're not attacking the president of the country. They're attacking you. They're attacking you personally and your liberties and your freedoms. If you take a look at what's going on right now, if the Democrats have their way and that becomes the legal precedent here in this country, then what can happen to you personally is that if somebody in an authority position decides they don't like you for any reason, it could be your political opinion, it could be your business, it could be that they're jealous of you, they can trump up charges, they can modify those charges and lie about it, completely get away with immunity by putting you in jail and having you never see the light of day. Due process has been thrown out the window. Due process is the cornerstone of our Constitution. It comes from early documents like the Magna Carta. This has been the Western philosophy for centuries. And this impeachment is doing away with that whole protective freedom, which is part of our unalienable rights. And this is a shame. And it should be scary to every single person here in this country.
Well, it's absolutely scary because as you say, the precedent that is being laid down. So now we go through the next election and the losing party starts impeachment hearings
immediately.
I mean, they haven't been doing their job for 3 years.
No.
With all these distractions. So
how do you not call that abuse of power?
Without question. I totally agree. So what is likely to happen from here? So he does technically get impeached because the Democrats own the House, but he's not going to get removed from power because the Senate. So to me, it seems that end game, first of all, even if he got removed from power, just give you Pence. Have they ever thought that through?
Here's my concern, and because I think you're making a great legitimate point. Adam Schiff himself said a few months ago that impeachment without removal is a travesty. And now
I think it's going to kill their party, isn't it?
I think it could
kill the Democrats.
Over the weekend, he said that impeachment without removal is still worth it. Why did he change? Well, first off, he knows that he's not going to get removal. But here's what I'm more concerned about. And I like to listen to Mark Levin, and he brought this up. Actually, his neighbor brought this up, and he gave credit to his neighbor. And here's what it is. One of the most sacred honors that the president gets is appointing Supreme Court justices. Right now, he's appointed 2 Supreme Court justices, and for the first time in our lifetimes, the Supreme Court is now bent towards conservatism. Actually, the first time since the 1930s. Now, that's why a lot of changes have actually happened here. That's brought us abortion on demand. It's brought us gay marriage as well. So these are we've taken prayer out of the school. We've completely changed the school system. We can't talk about God in school. These have all gone through the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has changed this because they have been majority, not liberal, but left. And so now for the first time, this will change the trajectory of our legal system for at least the next 20 years. Now, as the president is coming to the end of his first term, he could possibly be going into a second term. But between now and the end of this term, Ruth Bader Ginsburg could possibly leave and vacate that position in the Supreme Court. I believe that the Democrats are going to use impeachment to say that we would never let a sitting president appoint a Supreme Court justice who has been impeached. And that's what Mark Levin brought up. And I believe that that's one of the most powerful honors and privileges that the president gets, and I believe they're going to use this to try to strip him of that power, whether he's elected again or not.
Do you think that there's any chance, we got to wrap up, but do you think that there's any chance that they could lose this impeachment?
No.
Is there any chance that this can be overturned and said this is unconstitutional? Even, okay, it's going to go through. It's a given. It's going to go through. He will be impeached. Is there any chance that there's going to be new hearings on the constitutionality of the impeachment?
So the only body that could possibly overturn this is the Supreme Court. Anytime there is a disagreement between the executive and the legislative branch, it's the judiciary that comes in. The judiciary could possibly come in and say that the grounds for impeachment here are unconstitutional. And so that would be pretty exciting if something like that were to happen. But this is why we have three branches of government to protect our republic in that whole thing. And here's another thing to just throw out there. Study the first impeachment of a president, Andrew Johnson, and look and see the complete similarities of the Trump impeachment that's happening, and see how the Senate came in and saved the presidency by one vote. One vote saved his presidency, and then see why they did it. They did it because they were concerned that this would do everlasting damage to our republic. And here we go again.
Yeah, for sure. Well, next time we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we do.
Whatever happens, we really do. But we got to sign off. So, hey, thanks for joining us, everyone. Hope that you got a lot out of the show. And please leave questions. You can leave any comments, questions on our YouTube channel, Over 50 Starting Over, Over 50 Starting Over, or at our website, over50startingover.com. And you can get links to all of our podcast hosting and a YouTube channel as well at over50startingover.com. Spell that out. That is not the numeral 50.
Right on. Good work.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk to you next week.
Yep. God bless America.
See you.